Week 1, Day 1, Afternoon. Macewood, a small village that would more aptly be called a trading camp, is a small selection of makeshift houses and tents. It boasts the biggest market for miles, and for this reason it finds home to many travellers. Macewood sits nearby a set of sprawling forests, while being contained within the area known as the Plains. It is frequented by dust storms, which give everything and anything that doesn't move a red-brown shade. Seth, selling his wares at the Macewood market, was currently bartering with a portly barman who had blue paint markings across his body. The item in question was a large gold flagon. 10 gold pieces, Seth declared, beaming. Pick this beauty up in a tomb of a lost king, explained Seth, covering up this blatant lie with a cheery smile. I'll give you 7, replied the barman. I said 10, said Seth. What makes you think I'll give it to you for 7? Well, it's a bit battered, isn't it? Said the barman. This was a complete understatement. The flagon was completely covered in dents and scratches, so much so the lid no longer fit properly on the top. Yes, well, I had to wrestle it from a horde of undead warriors to get it off their master's corpse, replied Seth, waving in his fists in front of his face, fully knowing he had done no such thing. Okay, but that doesn't make it look any nicer. I can't have this on my mantelpiece for people to look at, the barman said. Look at? Look at? Gasped an unbelieving Seth. I meant for you to use it. I'll have you know that I test each and every one of my products for their specific use, and this is definitely a using flagon. But I'm sure I can find someone who will use it properly, since you seem uncivilized enough to not know a using flagon when one is presented for you. The barman was taken aback. Fine. 10 gold pieces and be off with it, he flustered and pulled out the coin. Pleasure doing business with you, Seth grinned. The barman tucked the flagon under his arm and walked off grumpily. Seth looked across the horizon, the sun just beginning to touch it. It's getting late, thought Seth, so he started packing up his goods. He then heaved the loaded bag onto his cart, which was parked behind him. With everything tidied and packed, he started the cart and pulled out onto the emptying street. 23 years have passed since the incident, as it was now referred to, and people still have not had the time or money to build anything more permanent than the makeshift houses Seth saw around him. He left the small village and turned down a small dirt track. Ellen heard the front door slam open and close, and braced herself for the inevitable "Ellen!" Baron Valther bellowed. "Ellen, where are you?" Ellen slid out of a nearby room and curtly replied, "Here, sir. Fetch me my tankard." "Right away, sir," said Ellen, as she ran away to retrieve it. Ellen navigated the winding corridors of Valther's manor as someone who travels them regularly. Being Valther's handmaid, she must follow him everywhere he goes within the manor and do his every bidding. Therefore she knew exactly where to find his tankard, where he left it last night, and where he will leave it tonight, as he had done for the last 5 years. Well, 5 years, 4 months, and 7 days, but who's counting, thought Ellen as she reached the tankard in his drawing room. Not that he was creative enough to ever draw, it was a room that showed Valther for whoever he really was. A bloodthirsty murderer, thought Ellen as she looked around the room, which was adorned with hundreds and hundreds of preserved animals. If you could still call them that nowadays, anyway. He had either shot them himself or bought from a travelling merchant. On her way to Valther, she dropped into the kitchen to refill the tank with his favourite drink, a beverage made from the distilled juice of a certain combination of mushrooms, which seemed to grow in abundance in the manor's gardens. Ellen thought herself a master of this. It was one of the first things she was taught when she first arrived here, and to say the least, she'd had enough practice at it. With the amount of Valther drinks, and she has to make a new batch every week. As Ellen returned to the front room, she found Valther handing a bag of rock jaws to one servant, and a bag bulging with the bodies of the demented bird. A large bury to another large butler, who slung the large mammal over his shoulder and wandered off with it. She calmly went up with Valther and muttered a polite "sir," while holding up the tankard so he could reach it easily. He was almost twice the size of her, in width more than height. He was a mean man, with beady little eyes, a wide mouth and fat nose thrown into a large, round face. This man would be nothing without his money, Ellen thought as he messily drank from the tankard, slopping most of it down his front.